Medical advances. Presently, your third-density medical system is breaking down, for two reasons. First, it is tied to economic systems and governments that are unable to provide for the burgeoning population of aging, baby boomers, and those with immune system failure. In the for-profit countries, medical care is becoming too expensive for all but the very rich. In most other countries, medical care is poised to send governments into insolvency. Second, the emphasis in most medical communities has been on repairing the body, rather than in rooting out the primal causes of illness, disease, decay and death. The allopathic form of medicine is necessary and beneficial when it comes to repairing damaged bodies that have been in accidents, and a few of the medicines developed since the mid-20th century have been life-saving or at least comforting to those who are suffering. As a larger and larger percentage of the population fails to respond to allopathic approaches, holistic medicine will flourish. More and more souls will return to natural remedies, such as herbs, homeopathy, naturopathy, kinesiology, etc. A large body of previously allopathic physicians will begin exploring the psychological and spiritual causes of illness. Currently, these doctors are still in the minority among the general population. Your genetics researchers will continue to map out the immortality gene, and develop new technologies for splicing and combining it with existing mortal genes. Stem cell research will continue, despite opposition from some religious groups. Cloning and related practices will be extended and refined. Although these new medical advances will start prolonging the lives of a few human beings, the vast majority will be unresponsive because the cause of their aging and decay will not have been addressed. Keeping a human body alive when the soul has given up interest in living does not work, and eventually the soul will find a way of exiting the body in such cases. Of course, the egoic self will continuously try to prolong itself, mostly out of fear of death or belief in self-importance. As of this writing, people were living longer, but the quality of life was deteriorating in the majority of older people. Pharma companies want a long, sick life for individuals so they can maximize profits on medicine. In order for humans to attain physical immortality while in fourth density, they will need to have a great degree of enthusiasm and excitement about being alive. They will need to have a strong sense of purpose and commitment to being on Earth. They will also need to clear their subconscious and unconscious fear of death. If they are ready to move into fifth density ascension, then they will not need modern medicine to attain immortality anyway. For the rest of surviving humanity, the thought of living a robust existence without debilitating diseases will spur on the medical researchers. In addition to isolating certain genetic material responsible for mortality and illness, and revitalizing the DNA through stem cell implantation and induced mutation of mortal cells through splicing, blending, etc., there will be recognition of the electromagnetic nature of the human being. Etheric healing modalities will be combined with more traditional medicinal approaches. These etheric approaches include aura clearing, chakra balancing, sound and color therapies, the use of crystals, etc. The application of orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, ormus, and other aspects of revitalization previously known as alchemy of metals will be revisited by researchers. Brain research will continue to advance as well. Physicians will begin to understand the relationship between consciousness, the mind and the brain. The brain is like a central computer system that processes signals. It receives its instructions from the mind, which in turn is a product of consciousness. ET technologies are already playing a vital role in the advances of medicine. The fourth density Pleiadians have developed ways of prolonging the life of the physical form on their home worlds and have brought elements of those technologies to the Earth over the past 50 years. It may appear, to mainstream scientists, that some researchers suddenly got inspired to investigate a particular aspect of the genome, while in fact, they were telepathically contacted by the Pleiadians, often without their conscious knowledge, but with their soul's consent, of course. The fourth-density Sirians have also played a part in the development of medical technologies on Earth. Some of their more enlightened members were behind the ancient alchemies, especially in Egypt and Samaria, along with the Anunnaki and others. These groups used radionics and M-field therapies to balance the etheric body and thereby remove the imprints of disease and illness from the physical body. Because the consciousness of the human recipients of those technologies contained a great deal of subconscious denial, most of the advances made were impermanent. Some of the music currently being produced on Earth originally came from the Lyra-Vega star system, where the human DNA ultimately began. There are specific sequences of chords and melodies that trigger the immortality gene and higher awareness in the DNA molecule. Repeated listening, under the right environmental conditions, to these sequences can result in rapid or even instantaneous healing. The use of light, in the form of color therapy, can also trigger DNA activation. The Lyrans, the original root race of the Pleiadians, have inspired millions of souls on Earth to compose music and light sequences that truly uplift the vibrations of humanity. In the years to come on Earth, many of the synthetic medicines will be replaced with music, sound and color therapies as well as herbal remedies. The pharmaceutical companies that are not evolving holistically will either convert their facilities to the manufacture and distribution of these natural technologies, or they will cease to exist. In countries where the profit motive drives research, the collapse of the economic system will take away this incentive. In some cases, the fourth-density souls will simply take over the pharmaceutical facilities and retool the machinery for more enlightened pursuits. The medical approach we most encourage is that of the holistic model. This involves having a knowledge of what this channel calls the 6 lower bodies, the physical, emotional, mental, astral, etheric and causal levels, and learning how to balance and bring all these bodies into perfect alignment. When the 6 lower bodies are in perfect alignment, information flows effortlessly through every level. In essence, all the levels of self talk to each other, or even commune together. This is likened to a symphony orchestra, where the attunement of the individual musicians to the harmony of the whole determines the quality of the performance. You will note an important analogy here. You can have a great deal of knowledge about each of the 6 lower bodies, but if they do not work together, very little will be accomplished. A group of musicians can each be an individual virtuoso, knowing every detail of the instrument, music theory, etc., but if they cannot play together in harmony, the orchestra will sound awful. This can also be analogous to medical specialists who have detailed knowledge of every cell, fiber and tissue related to their specialties. However, they may not be very effective as healers if they do not understand how their element or body part works in harmony with the whole body. There are techniques for establishing communication between each of the 6 lower bodies, including this channel's conference room technique, which he will be happy to describe upon request. The simplest way to align the 6 lower bodies is to listen carefully to each of them, by tuning in quietly and patiently any time you feel some part of self is out of balance. Usually, your physical body will tell you when something is not right. As soon as you begin to feel pain or discomfort, stop and tune in. Ask to have the source of the problem revealed to you. Imagine the part that is out of alignment as like a small child trying to get your attention. You can think of your lower bodies as inner children, and use an inner child technique to communicate with them. For example, if your emotional body is out of alignment, you can visualize a small child standing in front of you that represents your emotional body. Begin by asking this child what he or she wants from you. Listen carefully. You might feel the answer, or hear it clairaudiently. The idea here is not to blindly follow what the child says, because sometimes it will not be appropriate to honor the child's request, but the vital part of this exercise involves listening and acknowledging, and the willingness to work with the child to create greater joy and happiness. Often, the part of the self that is out of alignment simply wants to be acknowledged and respected, with love. This part wants to be heard. If there is a specific request, ask the other parts of the self to work together to help fulfill the needs of the inner child. As we have stated many times, about 80% of all physical illness and disease stems from unresolved emotional issues. Any successful medical system will devote the majority of its efforts and education to understanding the emotional body and how to meet its needs. Your psychotherapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health counselors, and other therapists will be in great demand in the years to come, as more and more souls realize that the cause of their suffering is within the emotional self. Right now, in most countries, only psychiatrists are able to effectively straddle both allopathic and psychotherapeutic realities without incurring legal repercussions. In other words, if you have a medical condition that has been traced to emotional imbalance, the psychiatrist can recommend a course of treatment that addresses both the emotional needs and the manifestation of physical illness or disease. We do not recommend that you all become psychiatrists, but we do anticipate major changes in your medical system to expand the role of those who address both the physical and emotional bodies. In addition to the psychological approach to medicine, we see a resurgence of shamanic healing practices. The shamanic approach involves the ability to build a bridge between the spiritual and physical realms, or the 6 lower worlds and the higher celestial planes. Included is what this channel calls the study of the intermediate realms, astral, etheric and causal. Oftentimes, the shaman will call upon a nature spirit, elemental, diva, fairy, animal totem, or beings from other time frames and dimensions, for assistance in gaining clarity with a particular issue. This channel uses the Arcturians as medical specialists, taking care not to violate medical laws. In his case, the Arcturians do not prescribe, diagnose or cure any illness, but they do provide education relevant to the client's needs, and they perform spiritual healing techniques on the astral, etheric and causal levels of the soul. In the new Earth, spiritual healing will be just as recognized and valued as other forms of healing. The primary purpose of medical care will be to assist in the healing of the soul on all levels. In the old third density model, profit and special interests often dominated the medical profession. Doctors were hesitant to adopt new ways of thinking and to speak out on the importance of spiritual practices because they were often funded by companies earning a profit on the sale of pharmaceuticals and related medical supplies. The third density medical system is based on the premise of treating sick people. In order for this dying system to keep functioning, there must be a ready supply of ailing souls spending a lot of time and money on medications. In the psychotherapeutic industry, the situation is similar. Third density psychotherapy depends on long-term gradual improvement costing many thousands of dollars per patient, and it would not be profitable to have powerful, effective psychotherapeutic remedies available that would often cure a patient in just a few weeks. In countries with subsidized or government-run healthcare, the same problems exist but they are not quite as obvious. You had cures for cancer nearly 100 years ago, but they were suppressed, and many of the doctors who found such cures operated in countries with subsidized healthcare. In many cases, their laboratories were raided and sometimes they were killed. We recognize that over the past several paragraphs we have once again repeated ourselves, and we hope you will indulge us for our redundancy, especially considering the importance of these ideas. In the new Earth, All advances in medicine will be greeted with open arms because fourth-density consciousness is dedicated to the well-being of all souls, regardless of income or any other factors. Higher principles instruct that when you help one soul, you help all souls. Every time someone is healed, it has a positive effect on everyone else. The selfish ego concept of win-lose will fade away in future medicine. Medical care is one area where the new technologies will shine. Whether it is sophisticated imaging equipment, air temperature regulators, diagnostic robots, or airtight laboratories, zero-point and other systems will enable the healing profession to focus on what really matters, the well-being of humans, rather than conservation of energy and other cost-cutting measures. The ability to send blood samples thousands of kilometers away in a matter of minutes to a remote laboratory, or to fly a patient to a specialist on the other side of the planet, will at most be experienced as a minor inconvenience. Reconstruction of the third-density world after the shift. Another area that the new technology will improve upon is in the construction and building industry. While there will be some new building, the majority of work will be in reconstruction. With the new advances in technology, there will be a lot to do to restore your beloved Earth to its pristine state. That will gradually become one of your highest priorities as you begin moving out of your intentional communities and back into the world at large. Throughout the cleansing and purification taking place in the third-density Earth, you have not been isolating yourselves in your conclaves of light, but rather, networking and connecting with other communities around the world. Your fourth-density Earth will be a thriving place as the galactic shift reaches its peak and starts to decrease its intensity. With the advances of zero-point technology, the energy necessary to reconstruct the old-world cities will be available. With your strong immune systems infused with light from higher dimensions, you will have no difficulty walking among the dead and entering the abandoned buildings and automobiles. Bodies will be properly buried or burned, homes worth salvaging will be refurbished and restocked, and the rest of the infrastructure will be taken apart and rebuilt, or razed and restored to nature. The population of Earth will likely decrease to around 1.5 billion, perhaps as little as 1.0 or as much as 2.0 billion, by the period of 2030 to 2035, and will then stabilize a bit, with low birth and death rates. The average lifespan of fourth-density humans will increase as Earth is restored, and by 2050, fourth-density humans will be typically living 100 to 150 years. The advances in medicine discussed earlier will likely extend this even further, and a few souls will attain a degree of physical immortality prior to going through ascension into fifth density. The fourth density souls will be counseled and guided by the 15 to 30 million who have moved into fifth density. They will probably still be visible to fourth-density souls, but may perhaps be emanating golden light as they walk among the citizens of the new Earth. Many of the fifth-density souls will have developed advanced psychic and intuitive powers and will be able to enter virtually any part of the Earth to render assistance. A few will be able to teleport themselves without the need for a transport device. The great majority will be offering healing modalities, spiritual support and general advice to assist the blossoming communities of the new Earth. The fifth-density souls will assist in bringing forth the technologies necessary to clean up the pollution in the land, air and water. Some of these cleanup methods will be organic and some will rely on synthetic chemicals. Among the organic techniques will be the introduction of beneficial bacteria, molds and fungi that will neutralize or transmute harmful pollutants. Once these neutralizing factors have done their job, the new humans will work with nature to restore her perfect balance. In the next chapter, we will detail the roles of the earth spirits and elementals in helping restore your beloved planet. By the year 2050, a major portion of the Earth will resemble the mythical Garden of Eden, which actually refers to the pre-separation state of humankind. Chapter 11: The Cosmic Order. The Mission and Purpose of Humanity. We have taken great care not to repeat excessively the advice given in our previous book, Earth Changes and Beyond, any more than absolutely necessary. However, some of the following information will be an expansion of the information presented in that earlier work. The purpose of all souls is to grow and evolve in awareness. From a soul's perspective, everything is a learning opportunity. Lessons are not good or bad, but they do provide contrast. As the soul evolves, painful lessons become less and less desirable. At first, they seem to be an inevitable part of the journey. The younger soul goes back and forth between simply accepting pain as a necessary part of life, and fighting against it. Such a soul will try to do battle with pain in the hopes of finally overcoming it. Once a soul has learned all about the different forms of pain and the lessons inherent within it, the focus shifts to learning about enlightenment. The first thing the older soul realizes is that the way to enlightenment is through service to others. By focusing on the needs of others, without excluding one's own needs, the soul gets out of his own self-preoccupation and begins to realize that others are just like him, more or less. The wheel of reincarnation was given to humanity by the Godhead in order to allow souls as much time as they need to learn their lessons. If it were not for the entropic state of the lower worlds resulting in short physical lifetimes, souls would simply stay with a present experience until it is complete. However, the hazards of third density, including illness, disease, accident, and degeneration of bodily tissues, made it necessary for souls to reincarnate into similar situations to those which they left in the previous lifetime. Reincarnating to complete lessons from past lifetimes is not the same thing as being punished for the sins of the past. The belief that souls must atone, in this lifetime, for karma incurred in a past lifetime, is erroneous. However, souls will often choose to come back in an opposite role in order to learn fully all there is to learn about a particular relationship. The relationship between the oppressor and the oppressed, or the victim and the perpetrator, is a good example. A soul may be a perpetrator in one lifetime, inflicting injury on others with callous disregard for anyone but self, and in the next lifetime, may choose to incarnate into the role of victim in order to understand what it feels like to be oppressed. As soon as souls have learned all they desire from these roles, they move on to other lessons and no longer create situations in their lives that keep them locked in these roles. Some lessons are learned by individuals, and others are more of a group experience. When an ET race comes to Earth and takes over by force, or sabotages the gains of humanity, or otherwise interferes in the affairs of humans, there is a group soul lesson involved. On one level, humanity may be playing the role of victim, while the other race, say, the Dark Dracos, may be the aggressor, or perpetrator. As soon as a sufficient number of souls no longer desire to learn the lesson of group victimization, something will occur to prevent aggression by the invading race. Of course, you do not have to venture into space to see how this works. The invasion of native peoples by the Europeans in the Americas and Australia, for example, is a case in point. It may be that some of the victims were aggressors in a past lifetime, or may be aggressors in a future lifetime. In some cases, the victims may have agreed to play this role as a way of teaching love and compassion to the invaders, if the souls involved believe the invaders are ready to soften their warrior-like stance. It is important not to judge the victims and aggressors. This is not to say that you should condone the actions of aggressors. It is simply to look for the deeper soul lessons behind such actions. Souls who are stuck in ego may play these roles over and over, lifetime after lifetime, civilization after civilization, until they are tired of the game and decide to move on. That is the case this time. The lightworkers are weary of the games of war, poverty, misery, oppression, control, domination, and such. They are ready to create a new golden age of peace, prosperity and cooperation. The Earth herself is now ready to graduate to the next level of being. This means she will no longer support third density consciousness. The beings that incarnate upon her will be here to learn different lessons. They will learn about building intentional communities, taking responsibility for the environment, growing food cooperatively, designing new transport systems, and all the other activities described earlier in this book. Beings associated with the Earth and heavens. Humanity is not alone on this planet. In addition to the enlightened animals, such as dolphins, whales and a few others, there are many beings on various levels ready to assist in the awakening process. Below, we have given some information on the roles of various entities as humanity awakens. The Earth spirits and elementals. Just above the physical plane is an etheric realm that has been depicted in some of your visionary paintings. Perhaps you have visited this version of Earth in your dream state, or have had visions. You might have dismissed these as the activity of an overworked imagination, but they are real. As children, some of you saw fairies and other creatures, but you were told they were not real and soon you abandoned them. In upper fourth density and lower fifth density, there is still duality, but it is much more refined than in third density. Nevertheless, you have positively and negatively oriented beings occupying the realms just above the physical earth plane. If you get quiet and tune in deeply to the natural world, you may be able to communicate with them. As you grow and evolve, you will eventually be able to interact directly with them. Some are in middle or inner earth, which is an etheric world, underneath the surface of the third density earth. The beings of the inner earth, gnomes, elves, sprites, etc., can be called to the surface to interact with you, or you can be transported into the inner earth to their homes, as you prefer. You have a lot of myths surrounding these entities, some of them accurate and some distorted. We are not going to go into tremendous detail on who is who in the inner earth, but we will say that your intention to communicate with them will draw them to you. They answer to those lightworkers who love the earth and want to protect nature from the ravages of so-called progress. By this, we mean unrestrained development, indiscriminate clear-cutting of forests and plants, and blatant disregard for the well-being of plants and animals through the discharge of wastewater or pollutants. If you are kind to the earth and spend time among the plants and animals, you will not only become telepathic and able to carry on inner conversations with God's creatures, but you will start to see the nature spirits, first in your inner vision and eventually, with your outer eyes. As you ascend in vibration and your physical eyes begin to change, you might notice sparkles and patterns in the air. Next, you might start to see wiggles and squirms near the periphery of your vision. This is not your eyes going bad, it is the movement of elementals, nature spirits and the like. The benevolent and loving spirits of a forest, for example, might beckon to you, and you might choose to sit among them and simply feel their presence. Or you might meditate until you are able to see them as clearly as you would other human beings. Often, these beings want advocates for their way of life. They might, for instance, urge you to stop the tearing down of their living space by giant bulldozers hell-bent on clearing enough forest to put in a new set of chain stores for the consumers of a society out of control. While your highest option may not be to become militant about your opposing of unchecked development, your nature spirit friends might propel you forward toward protecting a piece of the earth. The nature spirits and elementals may teach you how to read natural events, such as weather patterns, leaves, streams, etc. You might choose to live a simple life in the forest. Without the help of these beautiful beings, your life there might be fraught with difficulty. Yet working together with them, you may be warned of impending storms, or shown where a stash of food is available, etc. They may even be able to scare away pests from your garden. Talk to the nature spirits of vegetables and flowers. They will tell you how to take care of your plants. Likewise, the totems, animal spirits, will instruct you on how to get along with your four-legged friends, or six- or eight-legged insects and spiders, for that matter. You will quickly find that the entire natural world is your friend, rather than something to be subdued and conquered. With the whole world as your friend, there is nothing you cannot do if it benefits the whole. The angels, archangels and ascended masters. There are over 1 million helpers from the celestial planes available to assist humans at this time. As you know, you must ask for their help and be open and receptive to their guidance. We will use the quicksand analogy once again to illustrate the role of celestial spirit guides. Planet Earth can be likened to a swamp full of quicksand. The people of Earth, for the most part, are sinking into the swamp and are flailing their arms and legs wildly in a desperate attempt to escape. Beings from the higher realms are standing on the shore with rope in hand, instructing the humans on how to grab the rope and pull themselves to safety. Not only do they teach the method of pulling oneself out, they send a lot of love, compassion and encouragement. In other words, they are both the coach and the cheerleaders. Some of the struggling humans are pleading for the angels, archangels and ascended masters to jump in so they can be lifted out instead of having to grab the rope. What they don't realize is that if the celestial beings were to jump in, they too would be caught in the quicksand. Also, it could very well be that one of the soul lessons for the struggling humans involves learning how to climb up a rope to safety. Even if the celestial beings could safely jump in and rescue the humans, it would deprive them of necessary soul experience. This brief analogy can be summed up by a popular Zen phrase. Give a man a fish and he will eat once. Teach him how to fish and he will eat for a lifetime. Another important aspect of help from the higher realms involves the fact that it might not always appear in the form you think it will. Consider the story of the man who was drowning in a flood. He had learned to trust God, according to his image of God, and therefore turned away a rowboat, helicopter and cruise ship when they offered to rescue him. "You go on ahead," he shouted, "God is going to save me." When he drowned, he became furious with God. "How could you let me drown? You said you would save me." God calmly replied, "I sent you a rowboat, a helicopter and a cruise ship. What more do you need?" Although most of you are familiar with these parables, as well as numerous ones from your scriptures and inspired writings, it is still tempting to fall back into old belief systems about the way you think the higher beings should be helping you. A favorite we hear all the time is, "I've struggled long enough. Just take this from me." When a soul gets to that point, the healing is almost complete. Just a little more ego surrender may be all that is needed. Stripped to complete emptiness, the struggling soul becomes quiet and receptive. Having exhausted all apparent remedies, the one remedy he did not see before, which is quiet readiness, then descends upon him, finally moving him beyond ego. The celestial helpers come when the mind is quiet and the heart is receptive. They come gently, reminding you of what you have forgotten, that you are eternally innocent, free and unlimited, and are simply having a dream of separation, fear and loneliness. They remind you that the ego's concept of self is an illusion and that it is futile to spend your whole life seeking the approval of others, or trying to cling on to the little bit of stuff you think you have, lest someone wrestle it away from you. The angels, archangels and ascended masters teach by demonstration. During the few incarnations when they came to Earth and were able to remember their magnificence while in embodiment, they passed that wisdom forward from generation to generation, and even though it has often gotten distorted along the way, some of it survives. These are the stories in your scriptures, all containing a few kernels of the original experience even though there is much distortion. They teach that all is one, and that you can remember your oneness. They teach that if they can do it, you can do it as well. They do not pretend it is easy and feed you airy-fairy fluffy words of no substance. If you encounter a channel who works with beings that are all words and no substance, they are not truly enlightened spirits. The enlightened ones in the celestial realms not only inspire you, they empower you and encourage you to think for yourselves and if necessary, go against the grain. They teach that it is okay to rebel, as long as it is not coming from unexpressed anger and judgment. With total love and compassion, they practice nonviolent resistance, when incarnated on Earth, which is not the same thing as passivity. The celestial helpers are quick to remind their human students that they are equal to the ascended masters in every way. The angels and archangels are not superior to earthbound souls. Ultimately, things are no better in the heavens than they are on Earth, but perhaps it is easier for them to stay centered because they do not have the constant challenges that exist on Earth. They have the utmost respect for human souls. They consider it a courageous act to choose incarnation in this world. We in the higher realms have never had a physical body in a lower density place, and while we have a great deal of knowledge and wisdom about the universe and soul evolution, we cannot live your lives for you. Our main function is to give you the bigger picture so that it is easier to free yourselves from the daily illusions of earthly life. Through communication with our many channels, we help bring you together with extended soul family members and others with whom you have compatibility. Your soul family on Earth, when they come together, represents a powerful force capable of creating a wonderful new expression of divinity. In the years to come on Earth, many of you will find your soul family members who are embodied in human form. Of course, you will still be guided from on high by those members who have chosen not to come to Earth. Eventually, your cosmic family and your Earth family will be seen as one, and you will never, ever experience loneliness again. Many of you ask, how do I communicate with my angels, archangels and ascended master guides? How do I know it is really them? This channel and others teach various methods for opening the lines of communication, but really it is quite simple to speak to your guides. Notice we did not say easy, since you are attempting to break through the frequency fence, which is still a bit arduous. Start with a simple invocation. I now call forth the power and presence of, insert name of being. Come forth, beloved, name. Reveal your wisdom to me. Thank you, beloved, name. Then breathe deeply, relax and clear your mind, becoming open and receptive. At first, you might not notice anything out of the ordinary, but if you keep doing this, eventually you will recognize the form of the reply. It might be clairaudient, meaning that you actually hear voices in your head. Or it may come as energy, with patterns that you know are not just your own higher self. Sometimes, the energy gets downloaded into the higher mind as new ideas suddenly popping into your conscious mind. The more you practice communicating with spirit guides, the better the chances of succeeding in becoming aware of their presence. They have no trouble being aware of you because they are outside the veil. However, their messages get distorted as they are filtered through the barriers between their dimension and yours. All channeled messages are filtered through the channel and are colored by that channel's particular education, idiosyncrasies and prejudices. When we, the founders, choose a channel, we take into account the likelihood that the message will be distorted in such a way that the basic intent and purpose remains intact. Generally, we choose scientifically oriented souls that have had spiritual experiences and are seeking to integrate the spiritual and scientific realms. The angels, archangels and ascended masters have varying criteria for the souls they select to be their channels. Many of the chosen ones choose not to be chosen, and so the call goes unheard to those ones, and other potential channels are selected instead. There are approximately 10,000 human channels for the celestial realms, along with several thousand more for various ET groups, including the Galactic Confederation. Then there are as many as 100,000 humans who are not actively channeling information from the higher realms, but who have been inspired by angels, touched by an angel, as your popular media would call it. Then there is the larger group that believes in angels, close to 1 billion souls, but have not had direct experience. We, the founders, have 24 channels currently residing on Earth. Not all of them call us by that name. Some call us creator gods, or watchers, or some other term. The name does not matter, nor does the level of vibration, ultimately. The concept of levels is convenient for your conscious minds, to categorize and to assist you with discernment, but eventually levels will become irrelevant. The quality of the energy is the most important part of contacting celestial beings. If you do not feel the high quality of love, compassion and service, then rest assured you are not truly communicating with celestial beings. Many fourth-density souls from other worlds will claim they are celestial beings in order to get an audience or work with humanity more directly. With enough practice invoking higher beings, you will learn to recognize when imposters are on the prowl. We do not say this to scare you, but only to help you discern. In our previous book, and this channel's first book, he gives a checklist of criteria for deciding if the being speaking to you is truly of the celestial planes. We recommend you contact the channel for additional information on discernment. One item on the list is vitally important to us, because it involves our greatest challenge in working with you, and that is the issue of free will. Do the beings wishing to make contact with you understand and respect human free will? Do they seek to empower you to make your own decisions and to think for yourselves, rather than giving you easy answers? If you find yourselves becoming dependent on a spirit guide for answers, then something is not right. Sure, we in the higher realms will give wisdom, but we will also encourage you to apply it in your own lives and to investigate everything we say. Please excuse the brief review of your responsibility to practice discernment. Communication with ETs. We will not spend a lot of time on this subject because it is explored in detail in this channel's first two books, Life on the Cutting Edge 2nd edition and Earth Changes and Beyond. We will, however, update you on the latest situation with the ETs currently interacting with Earth. The number of Zetas has decreased dramatically on the Earth since 1995 because most of them have completed their mission and are moving on to other worlds. Those who remain have been advised that they must move into fourth density or they will no longer be able to be here once Earth goes through the portals and becomes completely fourth density. The Dark Dracos have been allowed to influence a tiny portion of humanity, because those souls being controlled by the Dracos have karmic relationships with them, or are so stuck in fear and anger that they still need appropriate mirrors for their emotions. The Dracos are not allowed to enslave the Lightworkers or any soul who truly desires peace and freedom. Every time they try to take over your world, or introduce a dangerous new technology, the Galactic Confederation intervenes and partially quarantines their operations. The Dark Syrians are decreasing rapidly in number because most of them are awakening, with the help of the Light Syrians and other groups. This includes the beings from Sirius C, called the Anunnaki. The Dark Orions are still the dominant group on Earth and pose the greatest risk to the well-being of humanity. This is because their warrior-like aggressive mentality is still considered by many to be human nature. Therefore, most souls do not realize they are being controlled. The Dark Orions are shrouded in secrecy at the top of their pyramid and comprise about 80% of the Dark Illuminati and about 75% of humanity, meaning the Dark Orion DNA is in a plurality in about 3/4 of all humans. The majority of the Dark Orions will be leaving the Earth between 2017 and 2030, along with some of the Pleiadians and Sirians who are not ready to move into enlightened fourth density. The remaining ET groups, Venusians, Arcturians, Polarians, Tausetians, Essassani, also known as Hathors, Antarians, and of course, the Andromedans, make up less than 10% of humanity. Keep in mind that we are talking about plurality of DNA. For example, if a soul is 5% Pleiadian, 4% Orion and 3% Sirian, he is generally considered to be Pleiadian. Once again, we caution you about getting too caught up in the composition of your DNA. Most of you reading this are eclectic souls that have been all over the universe. That means you might have 100 or more DNA configurations from your cosmic journeys throughout the galaxy. Your so-called junk DNA contains the ET sequences, which your scientists do not understand. If they were to capture ET souls from those different worlds and examine their DNA, they would make the discovery about the real purpose of the junk DNA because the ET sequences would almost exactly match their corresponding human sequences in the junk DNA. ET involvement in human affairs during the shift. As we have stated previously, there will come a time on Earth, very soon, possibly within the next few years, when certain ET groups will be able to communicate quite openly with humans. A lot of you have asked when this will be, and we have deferred to a standard answer: humanity is not ready for mass visitation. There are 3 reasons we have given this answer. The first is the free will issue. Most of you still need to make your own decisions without relying on ET intervention. If you believe your friendly extraterrestrial is going to solve all your problems, you might be less motivated to find your own answers and hence, grow as a soul. In many parts of your world, there is a delicate balance, meaning that certain trigger events could cause a lot of trauma and instability. For example, your major religions are not ready for mass ET visitation and would probably treat us as saviors to be worshipped, or devils to be vanquished. The second reason, which we have gone into quite deeply in our various dissertations, involves the non-interference policy. This is, of course, closely related to reasons given above. Being worshipped or feared are among the likely scenarios that would occur if we did not have a non-interference program and ignored your free will and soul lessons. So the non-interference doctrine, along with the fact that most of humanity is not ready to interact with us or the other higher dimensional groups working with Earth, means that humanity will still need to evolve further before we can walk openly among you. The third reason is not about you, but about us. As high vibrational beings, it is important that we maintain an environment supportive to our well-being. If we were to come to Earth and interact with you, the nature of the lower worlds is such that even we could become subject to the lower frequencies. This happened to the 7th density Syrians during Egypt and Israel. Witness the fall of the god Jehovah, who began his time on Earth as a 7th density Syrian and quickly fell to a 3rd density human. Those higher beings who do come to Earth periodically usually do not stay long and quickly retreat into the higher mountainous regions or hide in caves until their time on Earth is complete. An example is Babaji, the yogi who brought Kriya Yoga to the Earth. He has manifested at least 10 different bodies and has kept them just long enough to bring through a new teaching or impart wisdom to a few individuals, before leaving again. As we have said before, those of you waiting for the spaceships to pick you up and take you off the planet so that you do not have to face the difficulties of the Earth changes, may be waiting a long time. While we cannot rule out an occasional evacuation of someone deemed important to your well-being, we will not deprive you of your soul experience by whisking you away at the first sign of trouble. You chose to come here to learn, grow and help others through the Earth changes. You will be given the strength and wisdom necessary to make it through tough times. It is not easy incarnating on Earth. We understand that and we have compassion for what you are going through. We are asking you to stick it out and know that the portal shifts are upon you, quickening your pace and eventually gladdening your hearts. Already, major changes are taking place upon your world, and although it still looks pretty negative, most of what you are witnessing is a necessary part of the cleansing and purification prior to the new golden age. Becoming galactic citizens. For millions of years, Earth has been quarantined from the rest of the galaxy, as described earlier. As detailed in prior books, some of the positive and negative groups in the heavens went to war with each other over the issue of controlling the humans on Earth. The major soul lesson for the positive groups was to learn how to transcend duality. By making the negative groups their enemies, something to be forcefully overcome, they fell in vibration, essentially matching the negative energy of their perceived enemies, thus keeping the drama of duality going. Most of you have memories in your causal bodies of your participation in the war in the heavens. To the extent that you now recognize the higher truth beyond duality, you are able to detach from the light versus dark drama. By sending love and compassion equally to both light and dark factions, with no judgment whatsoever, you are truly transcending karma and the wheel of reincarnation. Every day you are tempted, by your media and so-called powers that be, to polarize, take sides, on issues facing your world. If you feel guided from within to speak for a cause, or travel around gaining support for a political candidate, or working to defeat oil drilling in the wilderness, etc., then by all means do so, but do not get caught emotionally in the drama. Do not make the mistake of setting up those with differing views as enemies, even if they hold a very dark energy field. While you are working to bring about change, send love and compassion to all who seem to oppose you. Always question your motives behind actions designed to counteract dark forces. Why are you doing what you do? Is there a hidden agenda? Are you trying to right a past wrong? For example, it is one thing to care for the earth and encourage responsible stewardship and quite another to angrily fight against multinational corporate polluters. In the end, you will be a lot more effective with your cause if it is presented with genuine love and sincerity, rather than revenge or self-righteousness. As you move beyond duality, you become aware of your place in the cosmic scheme of things. You welcome into your heart your cosmic family, both on Earth and in the stars. At first, your communication will be telepathic with those outside the Earth's frequency barrier, but eventually the barrier will break down and your ET brothers and sisters will once again walk among you. There are several groups waiting to welcome the Earth back into brotherhood and sisterhood with star alliances. The councils of Pleiades and Lyra, Vega, where humanity began, have been waiting a long time to welcome you home. The councils of Alcyon and Aldebaran continue to send their representatives to Earth, knowing that someday soon there will be Earth humans among their councils. As Earth ascends and the new technologies are able to flourish, so too will higher technologies from the stars be given freely to humanity. Barriers between countries, nationalities, religions, social groups and races will end. Humanity will unite in one holy purpose, to embrace and support life no matter where or what it is. Priority will be given to developing self-awareness and encouraging soul growth, at the expense of nobody. We in the higher realms are waiting to reunite with our family on Earth, and we know the time is coming very soon. Chapter 12 – Life on Other Worlds. We have added this chapter in an effort to give you an idea of the civilizations present on other worlds in this section of your galaxy, in the hope that you can find some useful ideas here that will assist you in implementing an enlightened structure for the new Earth. Although your mainstream scientists have estimated that the likelihood of intelligent life on other planets amounts to about one civilized world per 100,000 star systems, the actual number is about 1 in 1,530. We have given our account of the civilized worlds pertaining to this part of your galaxy in order from most relevant to least relevant, in order to give you some perspective. As we have stated in previous writings, the universe is about 80% benevolent enlightened beings, and about 20% malevolent ego-oriented beings. On Earth, the situation has been reversed, making this one of the darker planets in the galaxy. We also stated earlier that Earth is one of about 12 planets going through a major shift into higher frequencies. Below, we have listed the star systems and their various planets with advanced civilizations. Keep in mind that there are many more we have not listed. The groupings below represent only about half of the star races that have visited Earth since life began here. Although some of this information duplicates what was given in previous writings, we felt it was important enough to reiterate. The Sun and Solar System. Your solar system is included within the governing councils of the Pleiades, since you were originally a Pleiadian race, before the invasion of the Orions 500,000 years ago. Earth as part of the Pleiades. Your planet is the densest of the inhabited worlds in the Pleiades system. To illustrate this, we are going to digress a bit and review the vibrational model used by this channel. The composite vibration of humanity on your planet is currently 3.62 as of this second edition. This number represents the average consciousness of the souls on Earth. The natural world vibration is 4.32 as of this second edition. Once it reached 4.00, on December 21, 2012, Earth became a fourth density planet. The souls residing on Earth have individual composite frequencies ranging from 3.00 to 12.00 in consciousness, and 3.00 to 4.99 in physical embodiment. Your composite frequency is a complex series of averages integrated over a specified period of time, usually one Earth week. It includes your state of consciousness in the 6 lower bodies: physical, emotional, mental, astral, etheric and causal levels, as well as influences from your higher celestial selves. The consciousness of humans can be much higher than 4.99, but the physical form only exists as a mortal human up to that value. Those souls with a composite physical vibration above 4.99 are already in their ascended crystal light body form. As of 2017, there were 18 human souls on Earth vibrating at 5.00 or above in the physical. The lower density animalistic attributes range from 3.00 to 3.50 in vibration, while the so-called normal range of human behavior and perception corresponds to 3.50 to 4.00. The higher mind, refined intellect, and basic creative urges are in the 4.00 to 4.50 range, while those who have a highly developed self-awareness and spiritual perspective are above 4.50 in vibration. Many of the enlightened spiritual teachers have a consciousness in the 5.00 to 12.00 range, but if they are still in mortal human form, their composite physical vibration is below 5.00. Below, we will discuss the composite frequency of other worlds in your sector of the galaxy, that are relevant to your evolutionary process, and will attempt to describe some of the qualities and environment of those civilizations. Venus. Your nearest ET world is a logical place for beings in the etheric realms that are working with humanity to use as a vantage point to observe and interact with Earth. Venus is a hot, gaseous, poisonous planet on the 3rd and 4th density levels, but in 5th and 6th density, great cities of light with beautiful crystalline architecture and indescribably colorful gardens, fountains and plazas can be found in abundance. Venus has 2 levels of vibration, 5th and 6th, and is called a midway station by the ascended masters. This is because it contains a stepping down portal that allows beings from the celestial realms, 7th density and beyond, to communicate and interact with souls on Earth that have reached a 4th density composite vibration and 5th density consciousness. It is generally quite difficult for a 7th density ascended being to drop 3 levels in order to interact with a 4th density soul on Earth. In order to make themselves more accessible, higher beings use the midway station to temporarily step down their frequencies before attempting telepathic communication with their channels. A few souls on Earth have evolved to the point where this is not necessary, but it is still used a lot to make the experience flow more easily. Those souls who are growing and evolving on Venus reside in 5th density crystal light bodies or 6th density radiant causal bodies. You can visit them in the dream state or in meditation. This channel's primary spirit guide, Leah, resides in 6th density Venus. The social systems and cultures of Venus are geared toward creativity, art, music, dance, and other various right brain disciplines. Science is important, but not the emphasis. The majority of activities in Venusian society are centered around supporting the mystery schools and temples of light that are set up all around the planet to teach souls between incarnations on Earth, and to orient souls who have recently ascended spiritually or are ascending physically into their crystal light bodies. The latter function is just coming into focus, since very few humans have accomplished physical ascension prior to the portal shifts on Earth. There are no wars, poverty, social or economic inequities on Venus. Education is the top priority of all children. Fifth-density children are conceived and born a bit differently than third- and fourth-density children. Sixth-density children are manifested through an energy merger between sixth-density couples, rather than incarnating through the birth canal. At a later time, we will go into more detail on fifth- and sixth-density procreation processes. A large number of Venusians are involved in helping the Earth, using one of three avenues. 1. Assisting telepathically by establishing contact with telepaths on Earth from the comfort of their own world. 2. Visiting the Earth using holographic projection techniques utilized from spacecraft in the upper atmosphere of Earth. Or 3. Incarnating on Earth in the usual manner. Approximately 1.4% of humanity on Earth has Venusian DNA as a dominant matrix, meaning these souls have had numerous lifetimes on Venus and consider it their home world. Jupiter. Your largest planet has a lower celestial civilization, 7th density, comprised of a few 100,000 souls. They are considered gatekeepers or portal maintenance technicians, if you want to get specific. Essentially, souls entering the energetic field of the solar system from beyond the planets must pass through a portal overseen by the councils of Jupiter. The souls of Jupiter are responsible for keeping stability and balance within the solar system, and for monitoring planetoids, asteroids, comets and other objects as they make their trajectory through it. The celestial civilization of Jupiter exists in the outer layers of the large planet's atmosphere. There are no life forms on the surface of the planet. Jupiter's surface is not easily defined, as it consists of liquid atmosphere intermixed with some liquid and solid gases and minerals. Humanoids vibrating below 7th density cannot live under the extreme pressure and volatility, which includes winds in excess of 1,000 km per hour and volcanoes the size of Mercury. An average human adult would weigh thousands of kilos on Jupiter. The cities in the upper atmosphere of Jupiter are composed of temples of light and meeting places where the councils of Pleiades hold some of their gatherings. A lot of Earth souls go to Jupiter to be counseled and guided between incarnations. There are extensive counseling facilities there designed to prepare souls for future incarnations. Communication is strictly telepathic or through energy mergers. There is no discord, disharmony, war, poverty, hunger, or any other malady in the Jovian world. Saturn. Saturn is known by many visionaries and oracles as the place where the councils or lords of karma meet and decide the weighty issues of the day. This is somewhat correct, as there are great halls of learning in the upper atmosphere of Saturn where souls come to work out unresolved issues from their incarnations on Earth. Saturn also exists as an outpost for travelers coming from other regions of the galaxy, and as a home away from home for council meetings typically held on other Pleiadian worlds. The cities of light on, or above, Saturn include magnificent structures made of rare metals and crystals that house many of the records of the evolution of the solar system. The beings that live there vibrate at 7th or 8th densities. Most are assigned to work with specific souls or groups of souls on Earth. They have over 1,000 channels on Earth, and these ascended beings go by various names, which we will not detail here. Many of the names are energetic vibrations rather than discrete spellings in Earth languages, so the names given by earthly channels are usually approximations or interpretations, rather than the actual vibratory sounds. Alpha Centauri. The closest star to your Sun, Alpha Centauri, has 5 planets, of which one is inhabited by 4th-density humanoids. These souls are very scientific and have fairly advanced technology. They are very much dedicated to the non-interference policy and, therefore, have very few channels on Earth. Many of them belong to the various councils of the Pleiades and travel to the Seven Sisters frequently in electromagnetically propelled spacecraft to attend meetings. Being a 4th-density society, they have not transcended conflict and violence, but these are quite minimal overall. There is no hunger. Food is manufactured and distributed by highly efficient technologies utilizing zero-point energy. Schools are a centerpiece of their cities and are set up to educate children about the workings of the universe. Although they are technologically advanced, they have not evolved significantly in terms of spiritual awareness. Most of their attention is on the mechanical nature of things and how to navigate and propagate. They are in trading agreements with certain other worlds within the Pleiadian system. Their humanoid bodies are a bit more perfected than on Earth, but they still procreate in the usual manner. They have strict limits on population, and medical technologies to ensure they only have children if and when they deem it appropriate. Everything is about efficiency, and their world is a well-oiled machine. Lacking is a lot of emotionality and creativity. There is art, but it is rather institutional, by your standards. Dance and ballet are highly refined, but still rather mechanical. The Alpha Centaurians, in general, are a law and order society. They have subdued their emotional bodies just enough to keep this order, but not enough to create severe soul fragmentation and atrophy. Tau Ceti. One of the worlds orbiting the Tau Ceti star system has a highly evolved race of intelligent humanoids that have visited Earth on numerous occasions, including the present time. They are tall, slender light beings who often come with other ET races to bring advanced technology and spiritual teachings to Earth, as much as permitted under the non-interference policy. They are known as tall whites by some of your military people. The Tau Cetians tend to vary between 5th and 7th densities. They travel in saucer-shaped vehicles that can move up and down through the dimensional continuum. Their vehicles are rarely seen by humans. They have perfected the art of teleportation, levitation and even bilocation to some degree. They use the latter to holographically project themselves into virtually any place or situation on Earth in order to observe, and in some cases, interact with humans. They have highly advanced storage technology and were instrumental with the process of installing the crystalline discs used in Earth's Hall of Records, Halls of Amenti, located underneath the Great Pyramid at Giza. They have inspired many of the early spiritual teachers on Earth, including Thoth the Atlantean and Isis in her Egyptian incarnations. For review, Thoth is a 7th density Pleiadian and Isis an 8th density Sirian. The Tau Cetians are very humble beings in service to the One Source, and they prefer to remain quite anonymous most of the time. They have a few channels on Earth who call them by their star of origin, and a few who use individual names of contacts. Their civilization on Tau Ceti planet number 5 is etheric and composed of temples, gardens, pathways, and halls of creativity that highlight both their artistic endeavors and their scientific achievements. They settled on this Tau Cetian planet shortly after migrating from the Seven Sisters millions of years ago. Fomalhaut. This star system boasts 4 planets with various forms of intelligent life. Not all of the sentient beings are humanoid. Some have an insect-like appearance, while others seem more reptilian. The humanoid race exists at 7th density. They are blue-white, translucent beings who can seem to shape-shift into other forms. In actuality, they use a form of holographic projection to change their appearance when desired. True shape-shifting occurs at densities at or above 9th. Their primary focus is working with the other species within the Fomalhaut system to help them develop and grow. They have sent a few ambassadors to Earth in times past, and are assembling a group of souls to make a visit to Earth during the portal shifts in order to observe, learn and grow from what they experience. Although they are inquisitive beings, they adhere strictly to the non-interference policy. As far as we can determine, they do not have any Earth channels at this time. The Pleiades. The Pleiadians are the root race of humanity. The humanoid form began in the Lyra-Vega system, and the early souls with humanoid form migrated to the Pleiades, where the majority of your early soul evolution took place. The Pleiadian system we are using here probably does not correspond exactly with your star charts or scientific classifications. We have included the following stars as part of the greater Pleiadian system, even though not all of them are strictly in the Pleiades star cluster. In some maps, the Seven Sisters are the only stars included. However, from a governing council point of view, there are over 100 stars in the Pleiadian system with over 300 inhabited planets. We are only listing the ones most relevant to Earth, that have influenced or visited Earth in a significant way. Seven Sisters. The 7 large blue-white stars at the center of the Pleiadian system are home to 12 intelligent races and 3 councils, or governing bodies. The vibrations of the central Pleiadians range from 4th to 7th densities. Souls who have evolved beyond 7th density have usually gone to other regions of the galaxy, except for the high councils and the governing body, the councils of Alcyon, who vibrate between 7th and 12th densities. Beyond 7th density, location in space-time has very little meaning. The planetary system that houses the High Council, or central governing body, is located near several portals, stargates, that allow ascending souls to access the 8th and 9th density realms. About 24 4th density Pleiadian factions have visited Earth over the course of humanity's evolution. At this time, there are at least 4 of these groups actively engaged with humans. One of the groups has several channels giving forth information at this time. This 4th density Pleiadian group is well known to the Lightworkers. They are commanded by a female known as Semjays and a male known as Ptah. They have 12 scout craft and a mothership in the etheric realms of Earth at all times. They are assisting the Arcturians in helping balance the grid system of Earth, and one of the other factions is responsible for the majority of crop circles. The 4th density worlds on the Pleiadian planets are mostly scientific in nature. Some are heavily populated and resemble the cities depicted in one of your science fiction shows, Star Wars, without the constant violence, which is more of an Orion trait. There is minimal poverty and violence on the Pleiadian worlds, although they have not completely eliminated it. Most Pleiadian planets depend heavily on trade with other worlds to supply their physical needs. Some are relatively self-sufficient. They have evolved rather haphazardly in many cases, with overdevelopment and pollution being major concerns. Within the last 2,000 years, they have advanced technologically to the point where a lot of the problems have been cleaned up, but they still have a ways to go. Semjays and Ptah are 2 of the more spiritually evolved members of the 4th density Pleiadian races. A lot of the people of their worlds are technologically evolved, but have not really developed their inner awareness all that much. This is why a few of the groups have caused problems on Earth in the past, even though their intentions were usually peaceful. High Councils of Pleiades. The governing body of the Pleiades consists mostly of 7th density souls who are original descendants of the Lyra-Vega migration millions of years ago. Many of them are also souls who chose not to incarnate in the lower worlds, but are members of your own soul families. Representatives from nearly every star system in the Pleiades attend regular meetings in one of the great cities on the 14th planet from the 6th star. Keep in mind, beloveds, that these blue-white stars are massive and have spawned dozens of planets. The planet housing the central government is almost 3 billion kilometers from its star, yet the star fills the sky with its brilliant blue-white light. Being seventh density, these souls do not mind temperatures in excess of 1000 degrees Celsius during the long daytime. Despite the overabundance of starlight, they have achieved great architecture, gardens, and fantasy adventures, where souls can play and rejoice in the splendor of the Creator's infinite variety. The beings inhabiting the planets of the Seven Sisters are governed by the High Councils. They have put away the childish toys of war, poverty, control, oppression, domination, competition and greed over 1,000,000 years ago and have dedicated their lives to bringing balance and harmony to this region of the galaxy. They are working with over 10,000 human souls on Earth, telepathically, through channeling, visionary artwork, and even mathematical inspiration to your scientists. The High Councils of Pleiades are the elders of your race, and our descendants, and we are quite proud of them, in a non-ego sort of way. The Orion System. Although Orion has been the source of the majority of conflict and aggressive energy on Earth, the star systems that were originally at war signed a peace treaty about 100,000 years ago and have been living in relative peace ever since. This is not to say that they have no conflict, but it is kept to a minimum. After nearly destroying themselves several times, divine intervention and numerous council meetings between the various factions resulted in a major milestone of humanoid evolution in the peace accord. The seemingly endless battles between various planets in the Betelgeuse and Rigel star systems were imported to Earth during the Luciferian Rebellion, or War in the Heavens, that took place about 500,000 years ago on the Earth timeline. This is when the Orions essentially took over the more peaceful, feminine-like Pleiadian race that had been evolving on Earth up until that time. While the Rigel and Betelgeuse star systems have enjoyed relative peace for millennia, the Orion factions that started reincarnating on Earth have continued to play out the drama of duality through 4 major civilizations and countless minor ones. During the cleaning up of the conflict in the Orion system, many of the laggard souls, those who fomented the most conflict, were sent to Earth, which the Orions at that time considered a penal colony. Needless to say, the warring ways of the laggard souls have influenced humanity on Earth for a great while. Although we in the heavens do not support the actions of the original Orions in sending their troublemakers to Earth, we chose not to intervene, after much deliberation. The Dark Orions make up the largest group of humanity. About 75 to 80% of the souls on Earth have Orion DNA as their dominant matrix, meaning that their Orion configuration is more embedded and deeply programmed than any other DNA configuration. About 10% of the Orions on Earth are among the lightworkers and souls who came here specifically to bring the Dark Orions back to the light so that they can get caught up with their kindred souls now evolving on Betelgeuse and Rigel. The remaining 20 to 25% of humanity is mostly Pleiadian root race, with a sprinkling of Venusian, Sirian, Zeta, Draco and a few others. Betelgeuse. This star, home of 2 primary inhabited planets, and a few outposts, originally belonged to the Councils of Light for the Orion system. They became the Lords of Light versus the Dark Lords of Rigel. The Councils of Betelgeuse became polarized, which means they perceived the Rigelians as an evil force to be overcome through war, rather than seeing them through the eyes of love and compassion. The fall of the Lords of Light was due partly to the Archangel Lucifer's decision to view the emotional body as undesirable and unworthy of inclusion in the human soul. Lucifer portrayed the Rigelians as crude, rude, lewd, vicious, undisciplined heathens who were preoccupied with the pleasures of the flesh. He told the Lords of Light on Betelgeuse to eliminate the Rigelians. He told the Lords of Light to deny their own lustful nature. He then extended this Victorian attitude to the shaming of sensitivities in men, including the open expression of emotions. Lucifer wanted strong soldiers who would not show any signs of weakness while in battle. He wanted killing machines. He wanted cold, calculated, intellectual armchair strategists who had no feelings for the horrors being perpetrated upon the citizens of Orion. The Councils of Light were conned into going to battle with the Dark Lords, but eventually Lucifer turned on Betelgeuse as well when there were disagreements among their leadership. At that point, the battle became three-pronged, with Lucifer's renegade army battling both major factions of Orion. Rigel. This star system, home of the Dark Lords, often initiated conflicts among various nearby planets. Your modern entertainment industry has a mascot that correctly exemplifies that deep rage and terror lurking underneath the Ridgelian mindset as it existed hundreds of thousands of years ago. His name is Darth Vader, and his masquerade stems from deep wounds received early in life, eventually portrayed in the ongoing series of Star Wars movies. This channel had an experience many years ago between several archetypes of his own psyche, which he labeled Lucifer and Pan, the god of the first major civilization on Earth. In a symbolic battle, arising out of the real confrontations in the heavens, Lucifer and Pan are fighting under the following conditions. Pan is enraged at having had his feelings held down and suppressed by Lucifer, and lashes out at the cool, calm, detached presence of the fallen angel. Meanwhile, the Godhead, represented as the neutral backdrop of the drama unfolding on the main stage, simply observes this duality playing itself out in the theater of life, and is sending love and compassion to each archetype equally. The major soul lesson for the Lords of Light is to simply send love and compassion to all who wander lost and confused in the worlds of fear, ego, control, domination, and oppression. Do not engage them in battle, lest you be drawn into the drama and sink in the quicksand along with the Dark Lords. Both the light and dark factions eventually evolved to the point where they were able to sign a peace treaty, and miraculously, the treaty held for thousands of years until enough generations had passed that the etheric imprint of the battle no longer made a significant impression on the minds of the Orions. Note: at one point, Archangel Michael got caught up in the duality of good versus bad. This soul lesson for him lasted about 1,000 years. Now, Michael has integrated the lesson of duality and is simply sending love, compassion and protection to all souls who invoke his presence. Mintaka. This star in the belt of Orion was and still is home of the High Councils of Orion and is the place where mediation occurred between the commanders of Rigel and Betelgeuse. There is a large portal, Stargate, at Mintaka that allows souls to come and go through many dimensions and wormholes. Your Great Pyramid is exactly aligned with Mintaka because the pyramid served as a mini-portal, among other things. As the larger portals of Mintaka opened, several times over 100,000 years, the energies emanating from the etheric realms became strong enough to collapse the dualistic mindset that had entrapped the people of Orion for so long. Some of the peaceful energy reached Earth, but it was not enough to turn things around. The dominant Orion strain of warrior-like, aggressive energy was so firmly entrenched on Earth that not much headway was made on your planet until recently. High Councils of Orion. The modern-day justice system on Earth is a mirror reflection of the justice system employed to handle disputes in the Orion system for hundreds of thousands of years. Like the early Roman times on Earth, for a long time on Orion the jury and judge amounted to nothing more than a group of souls getting together to arbitrarily decide guilt or innocence, depending upon the personal whim of the court. In other words, if they liked you, you got dismissed, and if they didn't, they had all manner of torture, punishment and death in store for you. Never mind your guilt and innocence. Of course, both systems have evolved, and today, there is probably more true justice in the court system of Orion than on Earth. At least there are far fewer problems in Orion. The civilizations of Orion today are highly structured and resemble your modern cities, with more buildings and less open space than on Earth. Although times have been peaceful for hundreds of generations, all three of the Ridgelian planets and both of the Betelgeuseian planets have an elaborate justice system, military, police, and government structure in place. Slowly, the Orion people have been ascending spiritually, but they have had to clear a lot of negativity and karmic lessons to get where they are today. Nevertheless, creative expressions, including arts, music, etc., have been slow in coming. In recent years, a lot more trade with other star systems has been taking place, and new cultures and attitudes are being integrated into Orion lifestyles. The Orions had terrible pollution problems for thousands of years, but eventually developed propulsion systems and factory machines that ran on a plant-based fuel, derived from plants local to the planets there. The Orions are led to believe that they would be defenseless without a huge military, even though there have been no significant wars for 100,000 years. This devotion to the military has kept their evolutionary process slow. Some of the more enlightened members of the current High Council are watching Earth closely to see if they can participate in some sort of ascension program themselves. Many Orions who are vibrating at fourth density will be allowed to incarnate upon the Earth in the coming years, so they may get to fulfill their desire for ascension. Despite the problems on Earth, she is evolving much more rapidly than the planets in Orion at the present time. As mentioned earlier, the more enlightened Orions have been encouraged to incarnate on Earth to help those stuck on the wheel of reincarnation and duality. Many of the struggling dark Orions on Earth have not been very receptive to the incarnated light Orions. The dark ones have been subjected to many different forms of misinformation. Due to interference from other dark ET groups, progress has been slow indeed. These other dark groups have relished in the deep-seated anger and fear embedded within the laggard souls from Orion. As the lightworkers increase their frequencies, light quotients, more and more dark Orions will turn, often in desperation, to the offerings of healers, teachers and therapists. Despite the constant help being offered to the dark Orions on Earth, about 90% of them will likely be unable to make the shift in time to be part of the new Earth and will cycle off to another world, possibly in the Orion system itself. Already, many light beings are preparing themselves to be of service on the planets receiving the dark Orions. Alpha Draconis. The Draco system, home of one group of reptilians, has been, for a long time, about 90% dark and 10% light. There is an active program at this time to bring enlightened Draco children to Earth, known as the Dragon Children, to help bring more dark Dracos on Earth to the light. Dark Dracos. The dark Dracos, like most lower-density life forms, exist in three realms as far as the Earth is concerned. 1. They have incarnated into human form. 2. They are in spaceships in the upper atmosphere of Earth. Or, 3. They are influencing Earth from the astral realms. The Dark Dracos have attempted to conquer Earth by force on several occasions, and every time they have been pushed back by the Galactic Confederation. They are allowed to interact with humanity to a certain extent, but when they jeopardize the Lightworkers and other star races beyond a certain point, intervention is approved. Only about 2% of humanity has dominant Draco DNA, and most of the abductions and possessions undertaken by Dracos in spaceships are simply beings attempting to communicate and work with their own people who have incarnated on Earth. However, some dark factions have concentrated on abductions and possessions of world leaders. These factions have a strong lust for power and control and believe they can only experience their addiction through humans who are in positions of power and control. About 60% of the visible world leaders are totally or partially possessed by dark Dracos, Sirians or Orions. Those that have worked through their ego issues and have a minimum of fear and anger are less likely to be infiltrated by the dark beings. About 30% of the souls who are helping maintain the illusion of power and control on Earth behind the scenes are also possessed by Dracos. This would include non-leadership members of the Dark Illuminati, including most of its operatives in London, as well as a significant part of Israel's Mossad, Russia's KGB, America's NSA and to some extent CIA, and many other semi-secret operatives and agencies are also largely under the control of the Dark Dracos. The East has a different possession problem, mainly by Dark Andromedans, Sirians and Orions. We will talk about that in a moment. Light Dracos. About 10% of the Dracos incarnated on Earth and in the skies above Earth are enlightened. They are here primarily to help their brothers and sisters to the light. They are in both adult and child bodies. Many of them are fascinated by dragons and absolutely love dragon stories and movies. To review, most dragon myths on Earth arose from periods of brief habitation by early humanoids from a variety of star systems, as well as permutations of the dinosaurs. The Dracos in their native form actually resemble serpents more than dragons. The Dracos in native form did not remain with the Earth very long due to problems with Earth's gravity and atmospheric gas combination. The total time Dracos were on Earth throughout 10 million years of human history amounts to about 3,000 years. Draco High Council. This channel has visited the Draco High Council while in meditation. The council is chaired by enlightened 8th density ascended Dracos. Most of the regular members are 7th density ascended Dracos. The Council has intervened countless times in the wars occurring in or around the various planets in the Alpha Draconis system. There are 6 main stars and 4 main planets, and all have been at war on and off over the past several million years. The Draco High Council is now being assisted by many other star races and councils from across the galaxy in an effort to finally bring an end to the wars. Nearly 60% of the population of the 4 planets has been decimated by war. It is hoped that the new Golden Age on Earth will become a haven for newly enlightened Dracos who are tired of the nearly endless bikering inherent within their race. The Draco Worlds. The architecture of the Draco civilization resembles caves and mud huts where the serpent-like beings interact. Unlike most of the humanoids in this part of the galaxy, early mutations in the DNA caused the Dracos to grow scales and become reptilian-like in appearance. Various Draco-human hybrids produced the bird tribe, humanoids with bird-like facial features. The entire history of interbreeding programs involving the Dracos is too complex to be included here. The role of the Dracos in Egypt is covered in Earth Changes and Beyond. Zeta Reticulus. In our earlier works, the various subspecies of Zetas were detailed, whites, greys, and others. It was also discussed that about 90% of the Zetas left the Earth in the 1990s when they had acquired sufficient levels of human DNA to restore the balance within their own DNA. Only about 10% of the original Zeta members remain on or around the Earth, mostly in cleanup roles, or to monitor their members who have incarnated here. Most of the Zeta abductions were performed on their own race, though not all of the abductees remembered their karmic agreement to incarnate on Earth. Some abductions were done against human free will. The Essassani and Hathors. The Zetas were desperate to save their race and were therefore allowed more leeway than the Dracos when it came to interbreeding with humans. 2 of the hybrid races that came out of the interbreeding program include the Essassani and the Hathors. Actually, the Hathors usually refer to early hybrid leaders who engineered the later programs. You could say that the Hathors are the most enlightened faction of the Essassani. There is another species called Hathors that resemble the cow. This species interacted with the Syrians in ancient Egypt but is not directly related to the Essassani. Both the Hathors and the generic Essassani are tall, slender beings with half-human, half-Zeta facial features. In fact, they are about twice as tall as the whites and greys, standing as much as 2.5 meters high. The Essassani and their leaders, the Hathors, have about a dozen channels around the Earth at this time. Zeta Reticulus has 2 planets, one that is primarily inhabited by the whites and one that primarily houses the greys. There is a rogue planet in the Zeta system where the Type 3 Zetas dwell. They have been quarantined until such time as they learn to cooperate peacefully with the other Zeta races. Zeta civilizations look a lot like insect colonies, though there are more differences between their members than you might see at first glance. One of the things they have been trying to save, besides their ability to reproduce, is their individuality. Today's Zetas are more creative and expressive than ever, and their numbers are slowly increasing. Despite the bad press the Zetas have received on Earth, most Zeta cities are relatively crime-free. Efficiency is paramount, with everything conducted like clockwork. A lot of the futurist spectacles of robots taking over society have been made manifest in the Zeta worlds. The Zetas themselves are actively engaged in many activities, but they have numerous androids and artificially intelligent beings doing the more mundane tasks. When the Zetas travel to other planets and star systems, they often send fully automated scout craft guided by robots to avoid the hazards of face-to-face contact with other life forms. Some contactees on Earth have described automated or artificial life forms dressed in Zeta costumes. A considerable amount of DNA experimentation has gone on in the Zeta Society, which has produced both beneficial and catastrophic results at different times. Several decades ago, some of this genome modification reached the point where the Zetas could no longer reproduce. From a spiritual standpoint, the Zetas had suppressed their emotional bodies to the point where the soul fragmentation inherent in denial had caused their reproductive organs to atrophy. The colony-like mental state, coupled with almost total reliance on artificial intelligence, had bred the creative life force out of the Zetas to the point that they were facing extinction if they did not do something quickly. So they realized that the highly emotional DNA of humans could be the answer to their problems. The interbreeding program with humans lasted about 50 years, from the 1940s to the 1990s. A few programs are still operating, but for the most part, the Zetas have successfully altered their DNA in such a way that they are finally able to reproduce once again and to some extent balance their masculine and feminine energies. Approximately 0.8% of human DNA has a Zeta configuration. Most of these are Zetas who incarnated on Earth in the normal manner. Despite frequent sightings by humans of Zeta spacecraft and recovery of their humanoid forms through an occasional crash, such as Roswell 1947, very few products of interbreeding have remained with the Earth. Almost all humans impregnated by Zetas have had the fetuses removed to spacecraft once they can be bred independently of their mothers. As stated in previous writings, several Zeta factions entered into secret agreements with rogue branches of Earth's military and government entities. They traded technology in exchange for being allowed access to certain areas of the Earth without interference from inquisitive humans. We in the higher realms have taken a neutral stand in the human Zeta interbreeding program, for the reasons discussed earlier. Sirius. The Sirians have played a significant role in the history of humankind, as detailed in previous writings. Even some of your mainstream scientists are now concluding that accounts of Sirian intervention in human affairs, as meticulously documented by your anthropologists, has merit. It is common knowledge that many tribes, such as the Dogon in Africa, had advanced knowledge of the Sirian star system, with detailed drawings on cave walls depicting both major stars in the binary system. Sirius is actually a tertiary system with a third star, Sirius C, in a rogue orbit about the other two stars. There are no intelligent life forms associated with Sirius C. However, a satellite of Sirius C, Nibiru, broke away from the star when it turned into a brown dwarf many hundreds of thousands of years ago. Nibiru has a 3,600-year orbit around the Sirius system. Near its outermost point, the orbit slices through your solar system. This is how the Anunnaki arrived on Earth. Sirius A. The majority of the humanoids associated with Earth came from the Sirius A star system and its two major planets. One of the planets is more physical and accommodates souls vibrating at levels 3 through 5, while the other planet is more ethereal and hosts 5th through 7th density Sirians. The high councils of Sirius are in the upper atmosphere of this second planet. They consist of 8th density ascended masters, including Isis, the goddess who incarnated several times on Earth, including Egypt in approximately 7500 BC and again around 2500 BC. Isis is now an 8th density ascended master who holds the position of high priestess in the Syrian councils. She is channeled by over 100 souls on Earth. Her primary focus is helping humankind balance the male and female aspects of being. She frequently teaches sacred sexuality and helps humans build a bridge between the physical and spiritual aspects of intimate relationship. Another Syrian who has had a significant role in the evolution of humanity is Jehovah, the God of the Old Testament of the Christian Bible. Jehovah was a 7th density being who fell in vibration after coming to Earth. He became a jealous and angry God. There are many accounts of visitations with the Syrians in your scriptures, especially in the Book of Exodus, where Syrian electronics are described in great detail. Their ascension device called the Ark of the Covenant is well known. The purification necessary to prepare oneself to enter the electronic field of the Ark is the basis for many of the rituals currently practiced in the Jewish faith. Note: there are 2 origins to Judaism. Jehovah and the Syrians were instrumental in the most recent evolution of the faith. The Pleiadians and Syrians collaborated thousands of years prior to the time period of the Old Testament. The earlier Syrians were partially responsible for bringing the Kabbalah and ancient Hebrew language to Earth. The ancient Hebrew language was derived from the light keys and codes of the DNA molecule. It is literally a sacred language capable of encoding and decoding various energy fields in the human body. A little bit of the science behind the Hebrew language has been given by one of your scientists, James Hurtick, in a channeled book, The Keys of Enoch. Enoch was an ascended master who interacted with both the Pleiadians and Syrians during various times in Earth's history. There is a book in the Old Testament, suppressed by the early church but available once again, that details one of Enoch's incarnations on Earth. When the Syrians interbred with the evolving Pleiadians during the First Egyptian period, 10,500 to 7,500 BC, the resulting humanoids had large heads with bushy hair resembling a lion's mane, and were henceforth called the lion tribe. The Sphinx is a creature found on the Syrian planets and was built as a tribute to the Syrian gods during one of their earliest visits, before the last ice age. The Sphinx is approximately 15,000 years old. There were many hybrid races during the time of Egypt, including the Draco and Orion blends, as well as the Syrian lion tribe, and this interaction is detailed in Earth Changes and Beyond. If you travel to Sirius A today, you will find highly advanced technologies and a bustling society on the lower density planet. The other planet appears barren to your scientists, but houses the ascended beings we spoke of earlier. Sirius B. There is one planet in the Sirius B solar system that supports intelligent life. These beings have also visited Earth and have interacted and interbred with humans. They look a lot like the Pleiadian and Orion humans and can walk among you unnoticed, for the most part. They are peaceful beings who have attempted to act as messiahs on many occasions. Seeing the mess the earlier Syrians made of things on Earth when they fell in vibration, the beings from Sirius B have organized many trips to your planet in the hopes of rescuing you from yourselves. Collaborating with the beings from Sirius A, they are still organizing rescue missions and have plans to evacuate large numbers of souls from Earth during the portal shifts. Many of the Syrians who fell have joined the ranks of the helpers in the hopes of atoning for their perceived sins. They have fashioned extensive protection devices around their spacecraft to avoid getting caught in the negative vibrations of Earth. This careful preparation for their rescue mission is designed to ensure they never make the mistake of falling into duality again. They are overlooking one important factor, however. Very few souls on Earth need to be evacuated as part of their soul lessons. Most need to remain with the Earth through the changes to assist those who are having difficulty making the shift. The Galactic Confederation and other groups have intervened in the affairs of the Syrians to prevent them from violating the free will of Earth souls. Not all Syrians have moved onto the path of atonement. About 20% of the 4th density Syrians are of the dark persuasion and are still heavily caught in their delusions of grandeur. They are the ones usually responsible for impersonating higher beings, often for egotistical purposes. They are advocating for evacuation of the Earth not so much because they care for you, but because they want to be seen as saviors, thus fulfilling their desire for self-aggrandizement. A lot of dark Syrians are involved in the financial and governmental sectors of society on Earth. We have spoken of the Syrian dilemma many times before, so we will not elaborate any further. Andromeda. You have at least 2 science fiction shows being aired on your planet that depict wormholes between the Andromedan galaxy and your own Milky Way. Have you ever wondered where this idea came from? Andromeda is a huge galaxy, at least 1-1/2 times the size of your own. A tiny portion of it resides along a wormhole that links it to a section of your galaxy near the constellation of Sagittarius. Beings from several star systems in Andromeda have been coming through the wormhole and visiting your planet for thousands of years. Most of the recent visitations started when you began exploding nuclear devices. Some of the Andromedans have joined the Galactic Confederation's program to prevent nuclear disaster on Earth. They have been closely monitoring your nuclear tests and experimentation with the ionosphere to keep you from blowing holes in the protective layers around your planet. They do have several channels on the Earth, and have appeared in various forms to contactees since 1945. In some cases, they have collaborated with the Zetas. Many contactees have reported tall, thin beings accompanying the short, spindly-legged Zetas. Although there are several subspecies of Andromedans associated with Earth, the tall thin beings with the almond eyes are the most prevalent. The Andromedan worlds have a lot of variety and offer a broad spectrum of levels and densities. The 4th density ones have highly advanced technologies on planets with billions of souls. They are great writers, poets, storytellers and actors, and are in touch with beings from all over the universe. Although many of them are spiritually evolved and have a loving, compassionate focus, they have also overstepped their authority at times regarding Earth. One of their councils in the 4th density worlds is responsible for the Urantia material, which attempts to give a cosmology of the universe from their perspective. While the hierarchical constructs in the early part of the material are basically accurate, a lot of the accounts of Earth's history are inaccurate or are biased toward their early experiences visiting Earth. These Andromedans are governed by a central planet in one of the star systems mentioned repeatedly in the Urantia material, known as Nebadon in those writings. Councils of Nebadon. The spiritual overseers of the Andromedans visiting Earth are found in the Nebadon system located near the center of the Andromeda galaxy. These beings are vibrating at levels 8 through 10 on the density spectrum, which means they are capable of intergalactic travel. Some of the 10th density souls have used pure consciousness to traverse the vast distances between galaxies and have influenced the spiritual evolution of souls on Earth. Several are members of the priesthood of Melchizedek, a 9th density organization with links to the lower realms. There are black holes near the center of Andromeda that link it to other universes. The more advanced members of Nebadon have navigated their way into these alternate realms and have described the structure of what they call the Paradise Worlds. The High Councils of Andromeda have had the foresight and wisdom to seek an understanding of human free will, and their members have restrained themselves from intervening excessively in human affairs. Mostly, they work through numerous earthly channels and are focusing on correcting the earlier mistakes made in the Urantia material, as well as downloading the archives and records of Andromedan civilizations, which are too numerous and varied to describe here. Antares. One of the red giant stars in your region of space, Antares, has spawned numerous inhabited planets, though most of them dwell far outside the immediate aurora of the massive star. The Antarians are not major players on the Earth, but have visited on numerous occasions. They are mostly benevolent. The Antarian worlds are similar to yours, except everything is much larger, including their bodies. This may be where some of your legends of giants originated. It appears the red giant race mentioned in the book of Genesis of your Bible refers to the Antarians. These are beings over 10 times your size, resembling humanoids. Their worlds are rocky and barren, with huge mountains rising out of desolate plains. Mostly, they live in large metallic compounds with artificial environments that soften the massive infrared emissions of their star. Nevertheless, they are a very creative race and are actively seeking to develop themselves spiritually. Nibiru. This rogue planetoid, scheduled to make a pass through the inner solar system in 2030, is home to various levels and dimensions of entities commonly known as the Anunnaki. They have interacted with humanity several times in the past, usually when the planetoid is closest to Earth, approximately every 3,600 years. The majority of them are peaceful and enlightened, but some rebel factions have occasionally caused trouble on Earth. In addition, the enlightened Anunnaki have often fallen in vibration during times when they stayed with Earth more than a few days. The Anunnaki have several levels of civilizations ranging from 5th to 9th densities. To your scientists, Nibiru will look like a barren world about 1/3 the size of Earth. It will pass within 25 million miles of Earth at its closest point. As stated earlier, the Anunnaki are descendants of the Sirius C star system. Now, let us take a look at the more highly evolved star systems working with Earth. Arcturus. We have included Arcturus in the second part of our discussion on other worlds, not because they are unimportant, that is far from the case, but because they have little or no karma with the Earth and have virtually no dark members. During the early days of the humanoid form, a group of souls migrated from Lyra, Vega to the Arcturus system and took up residence on 3 of the Arcturian worlds. For various reasons, they were able to avoid many of the pitfalls that befell the other humanoids once they descended in vibration. Some of the Arcturians have never gone below 7th density, while others have explored realms down to level 5. For over 1 million Earth years, the civilizations and councils of Arcturus have been completely benign, meaning there are no dark Arcturians. Those that did take on the karmic energies of the worlds they explored have long since integrated and healed those experiences. Being extremely loving and compassionate, the Arcturians have come to Earth to help humanity evolve and awaken. Due to the urgency of the time, they have actively sought out channels in order to share their advanced scientific and medical understandings and technologies, as well as their spiritual enlightenment. While they do not violate human free will, they stretch the limits about as far as they can go, involving themselves in the restoration of Earth's grid system, as described in earlier chapters. The Arcturians range from 5th to 9th densities. The lower density ones have tall, dark blue bodies, while the upper density ones are translucent and have energetic protrusions similar to angel wings. They come through portals into the Earth plane and traverse the ley lines. They also oversee the popular Arcturus Midway Station, where a lot of Earth souls travel during the dream state and between incarnations. The Midway Station portal also serves as a stepping-down point for beings from the ascended realms so they can acclimate themselves to lower densities. The Arcturian worlds are varied, but incredibly beautiful, with elaborate architecture, fountains, gardens, and temples. Many galactic council meetings are held in the Arcturian system. Most of the Arcturians have never known war, poverty, misery, suffering, oppression or control, but rather than insulating themselves against these experiences, they actively seek to learn about them and understand races, such as yours, that have become ensnared in separation and fear. That is the main reason they are taking such an active position in your healing process. Councils of Aldebaran. The Aldebaran star system is home to many of the higher density beings in this part of the galaxy. They have central councils that oversee the various galactic organizations, including the Galactic Confederation. Included within the Aldebaran system are many sister star systems, all evolved beyond 7th density. Some are working with Earth and the other evolving planets in the Milky Way. Others are intergalactic travelers exploring neighboring galaxies, while a few have evolved to the point where they have complete access to the entire universe. Councils of Alcyon. This star system is home to what has been called the Great White Brotherhood, a name given by souls on Earth that simply did not know how else to describe the magnificent beings they were in contact with. The councils of Alcyon, along with the Pleiades High Council and Polaris High Council, are considered the supreme governing bodies of this region of the Milky Way galaxy. The 9th and 10th density beings at the highest positions of leadership are in communication with the great central sun of the galaxy and the various 11th and 12th density beings who govern this universe. Galactic Confederation, aka Galactic Federation. This organization, which has been detailed many times in previous writings, is comprised of over 1,000 star systems in this part of the galaxy. Some members have access to the entire galaxy and a few have intergalactic capabilities. Some members have access to the entire galaxy and a few have intergalactic capabilities. There are various subgroups of the Confederation that are well known on Earth, including Ashtar Command, Solar Cross and others. You have what some channels have called the ground crew, human beings, starseeds, who have incarnated specifically to assist the Confederation in achieving their goals. The primary goal of the Galactic Confederation is to assist humanity in awakening. Because they are so well known, some of the darker souls of 4th density Orion and Sirius have impersonated members of the Confederation. We, the founders, do not openly criticize or evaluate the various channelings coming into the Earth, but we do lay some guidelines. Specifically, if anyone is channeling information that suggests blatant intervention and interference, use extreme caution and discernment. Members of the Galactic Confederation do not beam themselves into the corporate boardrooms of organizations to intimidate and coerce members to vote in a certain way. They do not interfere with your political decisions except in the case of nuclear war or development of technologies that can destroy the entire planet. Members of the Confederation do not prophesy doom and gloom, or the idea that your entire world will become uninhabitable. They do not give you financial fantasies, such as the idea that you will inherit quadrillions of dollars, or pounds or yen. They will not attempt to mislead you by denying the tenacity of the Dark Illuminati and convincing you that the Dark Ones will gladly give up the reins of power in the coming years. On the other extreme, they will not overemphasize global war and focus on the few extremists who are attempting to poison the general populace. While we do not deny that these things exist on Earth, we also recognize that those who are embracing their own God presence within have nothing to fear from the misguided souls who are hell-bent on destroying humanity. Beware of any channel or entity that suggests you are powerless in the face of dark alliances or dark ET groups. Imposters will often instill fear in you. They will focus on the move to create concentration camps, or reptilians that want to harvest you for food, or electronic devices designed to explode your brains, etc. The less you focus on these things, the better. We are not suggesting you should go into denial. Be aware of the antics of the Dark Ones and then shine your brilliant light of truth directly into their darkest places. Simply shine your light, that's all. Do not judge what you are bringing to the light. Simply send love and compassion to all misguided souls who would act as imposters. Forgive and release those entities that give false information. Have compassion for those channels that have not done their homework and have allowed their own fears to cloud their ability to discern. Review the information given previously on how to discern the nature of the entities that are coming through. True members of the Galactic Confederation are loving and compassionate. They do not talk down, or patronize, human beings. They have great respect for each and every one of you. They admire your courage and fortitude. They understand how difficult it is to remain clear, calm and centered on Earth, especially during this time of turmoil. We are grateful for their dedication to your well-being. Polaris. The highest vibrational star system in this region of the galaxy resides in the celestial realms of Polaris. It is no coincidence that this star resides directly above your North Pole, making it a navigational beacon for ships in the Northern Hemisphere. The councils of Polaris represent the stability and enlightenment necessary when undertaking projects as varied and massive as those of the Galactic Confederation. The Polarians consist primarily of counselors and guides for beings from the other organizations. They are the supremely enlightened and compassionate elders, offering advice and support for commanders of various fleets. They range from 7th to 12th density. Lyra, Vega. The Lyra-Vega star system is where it all began, as far as the humanoid form is concerned. We, the founders, operate through the portals of Lyra-Vega, stepping down our vibration from level 12 to level 7 in order to communicate with our channels. The portal that allows us to do this resides in the Lyra-Vega system. We helped engineer the human DNA over 100 million years ago in this system. Then about 10 million years ago, the early humanoids migrated to the Pleiades. The first humans on Earth were 7th density Pleiadians who dropped to 4th density first, and 3rd density later. As stated in this channel's 2 prior books, the Lyra-Vega worlds are highly creative and artistic. Music, as you know, it originated in this system. In fact, the word lyra comes from lyre, which is a musical instrument similar to a harp. Civilizations today on the Lyran worlds are beyond your ability to comprehend, since they have all evolved beyond 7th density. However, you can visit the Lyrants any time in your meditations and the dream state. Chapter 13. Life in the Ascended State. The ultimate goal of humanity is to ascend into the crystalline light body, a state of true immortality. Evolution does not stop there, but continues beyond 5th density into 6th and finally, 7th, the original level of the soul. At some point, your soul's journey through the lower worlds will be complete and you will return to the 7th plane where you will reunite with your soul family. Whether this happens in 100 years or a million does not matter, for what is in front of you now is what matters. This is the most exciting time in the history of your soul's journey. Even though most of you have had numerous incarnations in 4th and 5th density worlds before, never have you moved directly into the higher dimensions in the manner set before you now. Planets evolve through the lower densities, taking approximately 108 million years to complete one density level. In the case of your Earth, which is approximately 4.5 billion years old, it took most of that time to get established on the path of ascension. Now that Earth is moving into 4th density, we anticipate that she will remain a 4th density world for the next 108 million years, although souls will be able to reside upon her that are 5th density. In actuality, Earth exists on 7 levels, but level 4 will be the primary activated level for incoming souls. In your 5th density state, you will not be subject to the same laws and principles as 4th density humans. You will be walking in 2 worlds, or rather, 2 different levels of Gaia, the conscious being you call Earth. A further summary of the parallel Earths. For some of you, we may not have given an adequate explanation of the 3 Earths that will emerge during the portal shifts. For the rest of you, the following will summarize the main points of this book, including what it means for a planet and her people to awaken. From a nonlinear perspective, the Earth exists simultaneously in 7 different dimensions. Human beings have access to 3 of these dimensions, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Here, we are using the term dimension, rather than density, because we are referring to a realm rather than a specific state of vibration. It is ultimately possible for a human soul to experience all 7 levels of Earth, or Gaia. Gaia is actually the name of the higher self of Earth, or the 7th dimensional Earth. However, for our purposes, we will concentrate on the 3rd, 4th and 5th levels only. To fully explain what is taking place during the portal shifts, let us use an analogy from Einstein's physics, the black hole. As an observer to a spaceship who is positioned outside the ship at a neutral point of observation, but within the realm of Einsteinian space, it is as though the ship disappears over the event horizon of the black hole. In other words, the ship simply vanishes while normal linear time continues along its merry way. To a traveler on the spaceship, time will seem to slow down until it stops completely at the event horizon. To the traveler, it will seem as though he gets stuck forever in a timeless place, eternity. In actuality, the traveler will enter a higher state of consciousness and move on into other experiences, all within the eternal now moment. To an observer completely outside Einsteinian space, the ship will appear to emerge on the other side of the black hole in a sister universe, coming through a white hole into this alternate time-space continuum, but where time and space are reversed or mirrored. All 3 points are valid and true, depending on the perception of the observer, just as in quantum physics, an object can be a wave or a particle depending upon how it is perceived. Now let us use this analogy to explain the 3 parallel Earths. From the point of view of a soul stuck in Earth's third density, Earth will seem normal, although the world will also seem to be going to hell in a handbasket, to quote one of your favorite phrases. In other worlds, life will seem to get worse and worse until eventually the third density soul loses his body and reincarnates on another world to continue his soul lessons. Those souls moving into fourth and fifth densities will disappear out of his life. He will not see them vanish right before his eyes, because this process starts with psychological invisibility. Having almost nothing in common with higher density souls, there will be nothing to attract higher and lower level beings to one another because each will have learned all there is to learn from the other, as far as the earth plane is concerned. From the point of view of a soul entering fourth density, the world will appear to get better and better, as souls become enlightened and form intentional spiritual communities around the world. The third density world will appear to diverge, or become farther and farther away from the day-to-day reality of fourth density. It will eventually seem completely unreal, like a bad dream. When the third density souls exit third density, their buildings and architecture will remain and will be rebuilt by fourth density souls. From a fifth density perspective, the world will have become a shimmering, sparkling place of great beauty. The ascended soul becomes aware of the nature spirits and elementals, and now a whole new world of beings comes into view. The more ordinary world is still available, but it seems less real than the bright, vibrant, sparkling, fairy-like realm now visible. The fifth density soul is able to come and go from the fourth density world, and may be able to still perceive the remnants of the third density world, but it will be as though he is looking at the lower worlds from on high, which is indeed the case. The fifth density soul will have access to the worlds beyond Earth. At first, the contacts with other worlds will be telepathic, but as the soul continues to evolve, he will visit other worlds in his mental and astral bodies, and eventually, his crystal light body, etheric body. As he continues to vibrate faster and faster, he will become invisible to third density souls, if any still exist on Earth. Third density ETs in their spacecraft will not be aware of his presence, but he will be aware of them if he so chooses to be. Although the fifth density souls will assist the fourth density souls in rebuilding their world, there will appear to be a divergence between fourth and fifth densities. As the portals close after 2030, the simultaneous realities will seem a little less permeable, meaning they will solidify and become more independent of one another, even though they are all one from the highest point of view. The overriding spiritual principle during the earth changes is that of the vantage point of the perceiver. What you focus on, you become, is the supreme law of the lower dimensions. An ascended soul will see an ascended earth. A third density soul will see a deteriorating earth. Because earth is moving beyond third density, the life force will be withdrawn from that realm. Eventually, the third density earth will seem to be devoid of all life, but that will take a while. Once human souls have completely left third density, then for all practical purposes, the third density Earth will no longer exist. The surviving plants and animals will be transformed into fourth density. Their DNA structures will change to accommodate the higher frequencies. The lower worlds are ultimately an illusion. That means their reality depends on the viewpoint of the perceiver. The realms that have nobody to perceive them essentially cease to exist, although there might be new first, second and third density life forms entering into them to grow and evolve. Such life forms will give a degree of reality to the first 3 realms. This is a bit hard to explain because your minds are third and fourth density creations and do not easily perceive dimensions above or below these levels. For those of you reading this book, the most important thing to remember is that you have chosen either the fourth density golden age or the fifth density realm of ascension. Our purpose in working with this channel is to help prepare you for the journey into these worlds. They are bright, shining and ready to welcome you as you extend your awareness into them. Do not concern yourselves with other realms beyond 4th and 5th densities, as such higher realms will be a distraction to your soul's path until you are ready for them. The main focus of your higher awareness is as follows: stay focused on the light. Stay committed to bringing all dark places within yourselves to the light. Embrace all aspects of your one holy self that is beyond all space and time. We, the founders, salute and congratulate you on your willingness to be the pioneers of humanity and to move beyond limitation into your natural state of perfection. By reading this book, you are a part of the consciousness being described here. In other words, you are weaving a new timeline for planet Earth that includes co-creating, with us and this channel, a new reality, one that goes beyond the limitations of so-called normal human life. The material herein is drawn from our wisdom, plus the experiences of the channel through many lifetimes on Earth and other worlds. It also depends on the wisdom and insight of many teachers, both human and otherwise, who have come before, or who are currently teaching from their own perceptions. The higher self of the channel has formulated a viewpoint of reality that includes all of the partial perceptions of the lower self, plus the viewpoints of the collective soul of humanity, the collective unconscious and collective conscious selves. This macro self is then partially merged with our consciousness, or you could say he has downloaded a tiny part of our reference point into his, to complete the picture. The result is that the picture of reality that has been presented here includes a larger perspective than the average ego-centered viewpoint. If you resonate with this book and want to see these realities come forth, make the decision to focus on those aspects you wish to create. Be the change you want to see in the world. This channel, along with hundreds of other seers and visionaries, are co-creating, along with us and many groups in the higher realms, the realities being described herein. Your consciousness is what activates the levels and dimensions of this vast universe. Your self-awareness brings dreams to life and achieves miracles. You are the miracle of creation. We, the founders, are privileged to be a part of your growth process and look forward to continuing a relationship with you as Earth moves into the portals of change.